of your motorcycle. If your day isn't complete without some time in the saddle, if all you need is the open road and a full tank of gas, well, you've come to the right place, because this is Throttled, and it's starting now. Here's your host, Kevin McKinney.
Hello and welcome back to Throttled, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got a good show for you today, I believe. Interesting take on things. We were able to scrounge around and find Larry. He wasn't supposed to be here, and he surprised both Tom and I with a last minute, hey, I'm here. So, Larry, how are you doing?
Well, I am here, and I'm doing good. As you know, I was visiting my brand new minted grandson, and I was going to come back tonight, actually, but we decided to come back last night. My wife was worried about her chickens. So here we are, and here I am.
Wait. You have chickens?
Yes, we do. We have 4 healthy, squawking, egg-laying chickens.
I did not know that. I learned something new tonight.
Yes. Yeah, we can.
New information.
Yes, we can have chickens in Mill Valley. We're in unincorporated Mill Valley, so we can even have roosters. And we actually did by mistake, get a rooster a few years ago when we thought we had a chicken. And that was no fun. But the rooster got taken by a hawk, and that settled that. So, yeah. So I'm back, and things are good.
Cool. My
and
brother
I'm
used to have chickens years ago. So very neat.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. The eggs are delicious, by the way. Yeah. So, Tom, how you doing?
So, looking at riding.
Riding? Did you say riding? You broke up there, but I did not get to do riding this week because I was down in Santa Cruz doing my the grandson thing. So this week was a bust, but next week is a whole new opportunity. How about you guys? Any riding?
Tom may be having some connection issues, so I'll go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I ended up.
You go. I'm trying to shut things down on my PC because I'm hearing a lot of scatter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up having a class I taught this weekend. So yesterday I rode down to Montevallo, and then took because of road construction, I took a longer than desired ride back, to be honest with you. But just, been out and on the range, obviously doing what you do on the range. So that was the extent of my riding this week. This week looks to be, from the last time I looked at the weather, halfway decent. So I'm hoping to sneak out on more rides. I may have gotten out for like a quick errand or something like that during the week. I honestly don't remember it. It was more than yesterday ago, so I'm not required by law to remember. So that's all the riding that I did. But Tom, so I think you got things working again. What about you?
I refreshed, so if you can hear me okay, am I coming through all right?
We'll let you know.
All right, good. This week was a pretty good week for two wheels. So I was off for the week. So Thursday, I went out for a rare midweek ride and did about 260 miles in the North Georgia mountains.
Nice.
Really had a lot of fun playing around up there. And then Friday, the wife and I went out and did a 22-mile bike ride on our e-bikes. So that was some more two-wheeled action. But this will be entertaining. So my ride out on Thursday, I tested the limits of how far a GS can go. Or I say, how far could you run the accuracy of the tank and the range indicator on the GS. So when I started, I had forgotten to get gas.
Yeah, Tom, you're cutting out really bad, man. We dropped you there for a second, so I don't know what suddenly happened.
Ended up going. You still losing me?
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
losing you pretty bad. I mean, we probably lost about 15 seconds there. So let's do this.
Sorry,
We can save that story for next
let me
time.
refresh. Hold on, before I go any further, let me refresh my internet, and I'll be back.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So we'll pivot because that's what we do here. Which means we can't actually talk about the topic that we mentioned quite yet. We'll come back to that if he comes back. Otherwise, we'll come up with a different title and change everything. So, so the first topic we're going to talk about is swappable electric batteries, and I actually saw part of a video online about, and they look similar to these, but the Honda, KTM, Piaggio, and Yamaha are forming an electric battery consortium. And they're hoping to define the standard for what swappable battery packs within motorcycles would be. That way, that all the manufacturers use the same type of battery, so it doesn't matter. You just pull up, drop one in, pull one out. And so that would be good. And I know we talked about this. It's probably been at least a year, if not longer, since the last time we talked about the swappable battery. And at the time, I think I specifically was a little bit, I don't know. But the more we've seen some of the challenges some of these manufacturers have, if they could do this in a way that doesn't interfere with the design or the functionality of the motorcycle as far as how things kind of work. And you're able to create the motorcycle that you want to where they don't all look the same. Like, a Harley look completely different. I think that would be pretty cool, to be able to just pop up and instead of waiting someplace for X amount of time, you just pull out 2 batteries, throw them in a charger, pull 2 fresh batteries out, put them in there, and you take on going. That'd be kind of nice to see. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think this is something that is a long time coming and that needs to be done. And it probably will happen first in Japan and or Asia, and then and also perhaps Europe. I think it's going to be a lot longer before it comes to the United States. But it is just like having standardized batteries for your flashlights and radios and stuff. This is the same thing essentially. The other advantage of it is that you can have a motorcycle or scooter that can accommodate 1, 2, 3, or 4 batteries, whatever, and you could then adjust the range depending on how many batteries you put in the bike. And so it makes it, I think, easier to have a longer range bike if you need it and are willing to pay for it. And then you would have a shorter range bike for city commuting or stuff like that if that's what you want. The swapping stations could be put in current gas stations, and you would know that whenever you pull into a gas station, they would also have a battery swap facility there as well. So I think it's an idea whose time has come, and I'll be interested to see if other manufacturers get on the bandwagon.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding that a lot of this is starting from scooter and bicycles, right? But the key to keep in mind when it revolves strictly around motorcycles is the fact that they're going to go and they're going to kind of work out the kinks and then be able to scale it to larger platforms for something that may be bigger or may be able to, tie 4 batteries together in a motorcycle instead of the 1 or 2 that they may be using for the e-bikes. And so they'll have different levels, but it would just start with probably bicycles and scooters at the very beginning. But you've got to start somewhere, right? So right. I'm okay with them figuring it out and then like, okay, this does work, this doesn't work, or this is a best practice, and then adapting it to motorcycles. Because I could see it being more of you have X amount of cells. So instead of it being like large batteries like we think of today when we think of like a car battery, I can see it being a lot of smaller individual cells that, when integrated, function as one large battery.
Yeah, the batteries are too large, I think, to be used on electric bicycles. And you wouldn't normally think of using an electric bike for longer distance riding or commutes. But for scooters, for sure, and these would be urban type scooters, and I think also perhaps for electric motorcycles as well, instead of having a very big non-swappable battery, you could have 2, 3, or 4 of these cells on the bike, and they could provide all the power and or distance that you need. And again, having a standard that would enable you to get fresh batteries if you need to, I think is a really good idea. Just like, when your flashlight goes dead, you pull out the batteries and put in new ones, and that you can go to any store and get the batteries for your flashlight.
All right. So now Tom's back. Are you really back, Tom?
Yeah. I think so. I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah,
now.
It was just kind of weird. It just happened all of a sudden when we talked before the show and everything was fine. So let's so we're gonna rewind a little bit. And so Tom was telling a story about how he tested the fuel gauge range thing on a GS.
Yeah, so standard on the GS is that you can have on your dashboard, what your range is, how far until the tank is empty, and it goes along with your gas tank. So as I was heading to my first destination, I had about 70 or so miles left on the tank, and I was only going about 40 or so. Well, after about 30 or so miles, I decided to change direction of where I wanted to go. And I got this bright idea. It's like, well, I was heading to Dahlonega, but I decided, well, I hadn't run Highway 60 in Georgia from the top end in a long time. I was riding by myself. I was like, let's just go up to Blue Ridge and head down. And I just happened to know that I figured I needed gas. There was a gas station in Blue Ridge that I have frequented that sells pure gas, 93 octane. I said, well, that would be a treat. So that's where I headed on going. So then I happened to look at, well, what's my range? And then as I'm riding along, I pulled up on the GPS where Blue Ridge is. And at that point, Blue Ridge was 2 miles over the range that I had left on the tank. And at this point, it was about maybe 35 miles, and what I had left on the tank was, I think, 32. So I said, well, let's see if I could stretch that. So cut my speed down to 55 to 60, and that does make a big difference in your range. And so, had a little bit of range anxiety as I was focused on that and seeing how I could get it down. And slowly it came up where even, and then I had a +1, +2. I stayed at about +3 or 4 miles. So I knew I was pretty sure I could make it into the tank, into the gas station. And that's where I pulled into the gas station. Tank levels were 0. I finished with 3 miles left of range, according to the GPS. Now the GS tank is rated at 5.3 gallons. I took 5.32 gallons, so a little over its stated capacity.
Now, how do you figure that?
Maybe because I filled it right to the top of the neck. I don't know.
But what there's a line down there that says "Don't fill below this," and there's a little gap of air that should be in there,
so right? I probably filled a little bit up, but I guess what the main thing is that it told me that range that range mileage estimate is very accurate, and I was probably on limited fumes for those with just a couple miles to go before it was at zero. But the other piece of that is by dropping my speed from 70 to 55, I extended my range by about 7 miles doing that. So that part was pretty neat. What pissed me off though was that I forgot to look at how I always reset my one of my trip meters to see how far I had actually gone. I believe it was around 220, but I can't be sure because I didn't look at that. But that was the entertaining part of my ride. Then rode all of Highway 60, which is considered the twistiest road in Georgia, from Blue Ridge all the way down to what's called the Rock Pile. And spent the rest of the day on Blood Mountain, for those that know North Georgia, and Highway 348, the Russell Scenic Highway. So all kinds of twisties. But it was a fun little afternoon. Like I said, about 260 miles worth of riding over the course of, I don't know, maybe 6 or so hours. I think I only stopped once briefly and then once for a quick lunch, and that was about it. So that was my day of riding and testing out. So Kevin, I thought you would like that as far as knowing the accuracy of the GS gas gauge.
Yeah, definitely. I don't understand why all of these can't be accurate. You should know a couple things. You should know how much fuel is in the tank. You should know the capacity of the tank. And they should be able to determine the miles per gallon a little bit better than they do. But yet these estimates are, they're always off. They're off in all the cars. They're off in all the vehicles. It's like, hey, you fill up your tank. You've got 300 miles. There's no way in whatever I am going to make 300 miles or anywhere close to 300 miles in this tank. And you know this. Why are you telling me that number?
Yeah, so. It was good. And Larry, to your question when I first started this, no, I had no contingency plan should my my little journey had failed.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
It was going to be this did cross my mind. That was going to be a fun little push to the gas station, pushing a GS the last mile or two.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. But
as long as it's downhill, that'll work. As long as it's downhill. All right.
Yeah. So that was the way I had my ride this week. But it was and Thursday was just in the southeast here. It was an absolute perfect day. Temperatures were I think when I left the house in the morning, low 50s, got to the mid 60s, and sunny all day. It was just picture perfect day for riding. Midweek, very little traffic, so
nice,
fun all around.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, well let's talk about the topic that we titled the show, and that at the time Larry wasn't supposed to be here, so Larry, participate all you can.
Okay, you guys go first, and I'll.
Hey, can I make before we jump into that? Can I make? I said about this. Can I make one little thing on an equipment piece, and then we'll get into our topic?
Sure.
So I had mentioned earlier, and I forgot to mention this last week. So, Kevin, I ride with a heated jacket, and I'm a fan of warm and safe heated gear. So I decided to try out their heated shirt. So their heated shirt is basically just like a pullover. Read a lot of reviews online. It supposedly is great, works well. So I ordered one in the size estimate I was supposed to get. I didn't even bother plugging into the bike to try it because I tried it on, and the fit was kind of snug. Let's say very snug, like a compression shirt. I don't have a body that fits well into a compression shirt. And this was the proverbial 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack. So looked at myself in the mirror, as like, nope, this ain't gonna work at all. Didn't even bother plugging it in, packaged it back up, sent it back for a refund and went back to my trusty full jacket liner as what I'm wearing. So brief, short try on, but I thought I'd mention that if you're going to try one of those and you have a body that fits with a very snug type of jersey, go all for it. If you've got a few curves and you're a little elderly, perhaps, it's not going to be a good look.
Well, that doesn't fit me at all. So,
I mean, we all know that I like, running on the beach like in Baywatch because I've got just such a great workout regimen. So
six pack.
Yeah, somewhere underneath all that stuff.
Reserve muscle.
All right.
So that was it. I just wanted to make mention of that in case anybody is thinking about the warm and safe heated shirt. I think it's a great product. It's a great concept. I'm sure it would work great as, as like I say, you just wear a t-shirt underneath and as a pullover top, but know that it fits. So if you like your clothing really snug and tight, that's what it's going to fit like.
All right.
Okay.
So on to our topic.
Before we go to the topic, I just want to get. We talked about this before. We said we were going to do this. I just want to give a nod to Montana, which is the third state to pass a lane splitting law. They passed it this year, and it's a very common sense law. It's one page, and it lets the operator of a two-wheeled vehicle pass other when the lanes are wide enough, they can pass safely. They're not to operate at speeds in excess of 20 miles per hour when overtaking a vehicle. But it really is a rather general law, sort of like the California one, and it goes into effect October 1st. So kudos to Montana. And other states are, some other states are in the process of trying to get this through. So I think it's something that is happening, folks, and will enhance the desirability, I think, of motorcycle riding and scooter riding.
Yeah, it'll happen here in Alabama the day I have to give up riding because I'm too old.
Yeah, what does it say that, the states that are now voting this in are all in the West, nothing east of the Mississippi is I've even heard not even considering this.
Yeah, that is interesting. And they're the ones who really need it.
Yeah.
Because of the congestion. So I'm not sure why that is, but
I've talked about it with some local guys that I hang out with down here, and they're just like, everybody, they're motorcycle riders, and they're like, "Oh, that is the absolute stupidest thing. I hope it never passes here." And I'm like, "You're an idiot."
Well, you don't have to do it. Even if they pass it and you don't like it or you don't feel it's safe, you don't have to do it.
Yeah,
there's no obligation to lane split or filter.
Well, and it's misunderstood. It really is. Thing is what people see of lane splitting are the idiots on YouTube just flying down between cars when they're parked still. And that's not what. I was like, that's still illegal, like it is now, and it happens now, and it's still illegal now. It's going to happen then, but now you're like, oh, that's what they're talking about. No.
Right.
And like a couple of these guys are big gun advocates. I'm like, no, like you say, these other topics are what they're talking about, and they're not, right? They're not comparing apples to apples. They're comparing apples to oranges. Like, you're comparing apples to oranges here. What you're talking about is illegal either way, so let's not go there. Let's talk about it. But I'd open my door if I saw a car doing that.
Well, the advantage, I think, of making it legal is that you can then formalize the education of what lane splitting is and when you can do it, and inform not only motorcyclists about it, but car drivers as well, so that they understand that when motorcycles do this, it's legal and it helps everybody out.
All right. So
kudos to Montana.
Kudos to Montana, and on with the topic.
Yeah. We're sure.
Finally.
Should I call Chris even though he's not here and double check?
Well,
all right. So
go ahead.
Here's our topic. So when Larry wasn't going to be here, it was just going to be Tom and I. We've actually had some requests to do a topic similar to, things that we observe either riding or with riders that are coming to our classes that are just, for some reason they've been riding for years and they want to come to the class to pass it and get the card or whatever. A lot of those individuals are on military bases and everything. And just things that we observe of, mistakes we observe people making and maybe some quick tips to help people out in that scenario. And I don't expect this to be a long topic either, but do you have an initial thought, Tom, on that?
Yeah, I've got number one that I think everybody needs to do as they're starting off and improve on. Mine is head turn. In class, it's the hardest thing to get people to do, and even new riders, is turn your bloody head and look where you're going.
Yeah, and you see it all the time. You see people, and what amazes me is that speed. You see people doing things, and they're not turning their head. They don't have their body in the right position for a lot of the maneuvers they're trying to do. I see it all the time, and that's my number one too. Turn your head, look where you want to go. If done correctly, the simple action of turning your head can put your body over 70% of the way there position wise where it needs to be for both counterweighting and counter steering the bike, just by turning your head and looking where you need to go. I completely agree with you there, Tom. If you don't have anything else to add to that, let me think here. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That was my number one.
Yeah, and I think you would almost say that with any coach, right? I would say, outside of turning your head, is you have to be comfortable on the bike, letting it move underneath you, independent of you. I witnessed a person in a parking lot the other day, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. He comes in and tries to turn into a parking spot. Now, you would think this would be something that would be easy for this individual to do. You're just coming into just a mall parking lot, and he tries to turn in the parking spot, and he's so on top of the bike that he can't get the bike to go in the parking spot. He literally pulls in and then backs it up and tries it again and basically puts it back in the exact same spot it was the first time he failed. Then he, kind of 3-point turns it, just kind of walking the bike, turning in it. And it was amazing to me.
So not turning the handlebars?
Well, he was turning the handlebars, and I'll admit it was a more of a tight. You know how something like the Lowe's home improvement stores here in Alabama, like for some reason the parking lot, the lane, the travel lane between where the spots are is like incredibly small. So he was trying to get in, and it was just what he should have been able to do it no problem. The issue is all he needed to do is slightly counterweight the bike and turn his head and look into the parking spot, and he would have rode right into it. But he was just turning the handlebars and almost leaning the wrong way, and the bike was not really turning. And just to watch him push this bike around, not letting, I was shocked. And it was all, if you're out there and you're learning to ride, or you've been a rider for a while, one of the things that we lose because we don't practice it that much is our slow maneuvering stuff, right? I mean, we all get on the interstate, we all go ride in the mountains, we all go do these things that require speed and practice at speed, right? But it's, how are you at 7 miles per hour and under, 5 miles per hour and under? How are you doing, right? So as you're coming in, look where you want to go. Turn your shoulders. If you're doing a slow maneuvers, your shoulders have to turn. Okay. Okay. And I'll back up. I won't say have to, because some of you guys and ladies out there have this perfect balance thing where you can just sit up on a bike and turn the handlebar and that bike will not fall over no matter what you do. And it doesn't seem like you're weighting it at all. You know, most of us can't do that. So for those of us that can't do that, here's a tip. When you turn your handlebars and you turn your head to look, turn your shoulders. That really forces your weight to go to that outside peg. And you weight the outside peg just a little bit. And it's almost natural. You don't have to think about weighting that peg. It just kind of happens. You know, keep that in mind when you're moving slow. You know, get used to that. Practice that. That's the thing, is you got to practice that. Practice letting that bike lean over and go in circles.
One of the things that the slow speed maneuver that I think gets overlooked too much, and I've been emphasizing it much more in my last few classes, is the how to ride in a straight line as slow as possible, and also to do a pause and go, where you basically try and come to a full stop without putting your feet down and then going again, and then riding as slow as possible. I think that is a great skill for someone to master, and it's easy to practice every day on your rides, especially if you're in traffic, because it allows you to balance the bike, learn how the bike is balanced, be able to come to a full stop without having to put your feet down for, even if it's momentarily, or if you can do it for a couple of seconds, great, and then go off and ride. Every bike is fairly well balanced enough where you should be able to do that. And I think that's a great skill. And I don't know whether commuting, I did that a lot. I mean, that was basically that slow speed maneuver, bumper to bumper traffic. I had to do it constantly, but I think it's a great skill for people to learn. Do you guys practice that, or do you do it much at all, that type of maneuver?
Oh yeah. Anytime that you see a light turn green and you're still moving and you're hoping that the car in front of you moves so you don't have to put your feet down, that it's on. I mean, it's absolutely on, right? I mean, honestly, I did it twice coming back yesterday. Coming up, there's a red light. It's turning green. Traffic's going to start moving in a minute. But if I, let's play the game, and, I was 50-50 successful. One time it was, why aren't we moving? And I'm just creeping. And I'm like, okay, getting a little, turning the handlebars. I'm like, okay, any moment now. And there's only, I'm not getting too close to the cars anyway. So,
yeah. And sometimes you may have to flip the handlebars back and forth a little bit to keep your balance.
What really sucks is when you put your foot down, then you can go, you're like, daggone it.
Yeah.
If I can just hold it half a second.
Yep.
Now I have a question about that. Now, if you do that and let's just say that there's a cop on the corner, could they ding you for not putting your feet down at the stop sign or at the red light?
No.
Technically, yes. At least here in Georgia, you are a full stop is at least 1 foot on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
No,
so
they don't.
Yes.
If I remember watching reading the Alabama law, because I was reading something else. I want to say I read it, and it was just like the vehicle just has to come to a stop, complete stop, is what they said. Didn't say anything about having a foot down, or there was no special phrase for motorcycles that I remember seeing. Now, it could have been in some hidden subsection that I'm not aware that existed, but when I was researching a different law, I remembered reading that. Full and complete stop. So, I mean, if you stopped, you stopped. So if you pull up and you can balance it, what's the matter? So.
Yeah. So, Larry, have you been doing much of your parking lot maneuvers as of late?
Yes,
Is that something you practice?
I still do. And in addition to that, I do what you're suggesting, Tom. When I come to a stop sign, I try to stop without putting my feet down. I actually enjoy balancing I do the same thing on my bicycle. I try to stop without putting my feet down, and Yeah, so I agree. I think that's a really good thing to practice. It makes you more comfortable on the bike at slow speeds. And if you feel like you're starting to lean over, don't hesitate to put your feet down. That's the other thing. There's it's not the life or death. Don't fall over because you want to not put your feet down. But yeah, I think that's a good thing to practice. I have an entry into the most common mistake.
Okay, go for it.
Cool.
And the thing that I've noticed most is that people just don't wear the gear.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you think which piece of gear do you think is the most
least,
that is forgotten? Yeah, or the
well,
least worn?
Whatever's not legally required.
Well, yeah, it's no. I think it's the pants.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Pants and the shoes. Most commonly, I see people wearing jeans. To say nothing of shorts, but the most common is just regular jeans and regular shoes. Sneakers sometimes, or maybe sort of a work boot, type thing, but not a motorcycling boot. And very commonly, I see people wearing sweatshirts and jeans and sneakers. And of course, in California, helmets are mandated, so everybody wears a helmet, but the rest of the gear is missing. And I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah, I see in new riders, you may have, especially if it's a little cooler out, jackets on, but pants, it's for some reason, new riders forget to wear riding pants with armor in them and that have
Right.
some type of, and you go down, that's the first thing that's going to go is you're going to take the knee out or jeans have I've seen them shredded in just a 10-mile an hour fall just in a parking lot. When we're doing the BRC, I've seen jeans get shredded by people that go down. So
Absolutely.
can't imagine that speed.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
People forget that skin is one of the most important organs in your body. And if you go down on a bike and you're not wearing gear that's designed to not that's not shred when you skid, you lose a lot of skin. It's terribly painful and very dangerous for you. So regular jeans really are a no-no on motorcycles, I think.
I even had early on in my riding career, I had a friend that I was riding with, wasn't with him at the time, but he went down and he basically got up from a really bad low side where he just got slammed to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
He really valued his riding gear, his not only his knee armor, but he said his hip armor. He thought saved his hip. Otherwise, his hip would have taken the brunt of it, even if it's fairly thin. It said he was bruised and battered, but he got up and walked away from that without a scratch other than bruises from hitting the pavement.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So all of you who are listening, make sure that you wear gear that is designed not to shred when you if you hit the road. It's very important.
Yeah, and Kevin, I don't know if you did this, but I try and spend a fair amount of time, probably more than is mandated within the BRC, talking about gear and the budget and the pricing of making sure that, or at least informing people how to budget in and that you can go anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand, but each piece should be worn.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about, and at the Harley dealerships when you do the NRC, gear is more of a focal point, strictly because here in Alabama, even if we have an e-course, we do the review of the level 1 classroom. So we talk about it there. The way we do the BRC, with it being the E3 5x5, you don't have a huge chance unless, but it almost always gets asked. So we do spend some time on it. and everything. And actually, this group that we had that we just went through, they ask a lot of questions about gear, because most of them were like, hey, what do I need to do? And we gave varying, like, hey, you could buy the expensive stuff or you could buy the cheap stuff. My thing would be read the reviews, go make sure it fits and that it's quality, and realize what you're buying. If you buy a bunch of leather stuff, might last a little bit longer. You buy textile stuff, you take a slide, you're one and done. But you had the right gear on and you made it through that slide. So, at the end of the day, you got to do what's right for you when it comes to your budget. But it's better to buy something that's inexpensive but will work, rather than not buying anything at all because you're holding out for the expensive stuff.
Right. Agreed. And the other piece of gear I think that I see that it's often missing are gloves.
The funny thing here is we'll have people with gloves, helmet, and tennis shoes, and then shorts and t-shirts. It's just like it's just. I mean, like they by law they have to wear the helmet, but the gloves come in and they're like, well, by law you have to wear the gloves. I'm like, no, actually in Alabama you have to wear a helmet that by definition that currently meets the DOT standards, but it's not specifically DOT. They basically said they took all the standards that DOT was at the time when they did it, made that the standards for the Alabama helmet. That way, if DOT for some reason changes their standards to something they don't agree with, they've got the standards already codified as they want them. And shoes. So helmet and shoes are the only legal things that you have to operate a motorcycle. And there's no definition of shoes either. So theoretically,
so you could operate a motorcycle in your stockings.
Yeah. Yeah. You could take a cloth material, duct tape it to your foot to where it's not going to come off, and you've got shoes on. Right. So, I'm sure at the time they were like, everybody knows what shoes are, but you get the people that split the hairs, and then you get, like the people that have like, the sandals with that like hold on by a hair, wrapped around somebody's ankle. Oh, those are my shoes.
I've seen guys in the summertime in shorts and just like loafers. Mm-hmm. That's it. And a t-shirt or polo shirt.
Well, let's change back to other things other than the equipment.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see riders do, both in the classes, but more specifically, obviously I expect to see this in the classes because they're learning, but out riding is actual having friction zone and clutch control.
Yeah.
There's a lot of riders who struggle to just get going, and it's not so much noticing when they're able to get going, it's noticing it when they're in these slow, they're having to slow down but not really stop and keep going, and they're needing to slip the clutch. There's a lot of riders out there that really struggle with this. I see it several times a year. I'm not going to say it's more frequent than that because it's not, but several times a year where they come in, they're going in, and then all of a sudden, they're all over the place, and just letting that clutch out a little bit, or increasing the revolutions of the engine while still slipping the clutch, where you're not increasing your speed but you increase your stability. And understanding the physics, not really understanding the physics, but understanding that's one way to be stable is pull in your clutch a little bit more, increase your RPMs. All those gyroscopes and movement in your engine create stability for you. Those two things I see a lot that I'm just like, you would think before you went and got a 900-pound motorcycle, you could do that.
So two things on that. One is you can easily spot a new rider is that they've got the what I think I'm starting to call the push start. As they're ready to go, you see their upper body lean forward, and it's like they want to push the bike forward rather than giving it throttle and letting the clutch out. And you'll see people even that have been out of the BRC for a while still kind of do that rather than just sitting there and letting the bike go. They want to push it to get it going, kind of like almost like they're riding a bicycle and I got to get it pedaling first.
We moving. Actually had some individuals do that this last class. And one thing that I think people are too quick to get rid of, because I think it's a fear of mocking, is the power walking steps when you're starting off from a stop. Everybody's like, put your feet up. Well, taking 2 power walking steps while the bike's doing the work, you're just balancing for 2 steps while traffic is gaining momentum, and then putting your feet up. That is something that I think people are too quickly to just go straight to that, pick your feet up and go. If you're new to riding, less than a year, and I'm saying, and I'm not saying it's just that. It's okay for anybody that, okay, I'm starting out, I want to take, put 1 foot out, let the bike go, take an extra step, put my feet on the pegs. Get the bike going a little bit. Yes, you want to develop to where you don't have to do that. Yes, that is the goal. But don't do it prematurely, because you can really put yourself in a bad situation, especially if you don't have the clutch control I talked about earlier. So all this stuff, I don't know if you realize that all this stuff kind of ties together for the most part when it comes to the controlling at slow speeds. And this is stuff you should be practicing. Can you take your feet, put it on the pegs, wait, count to, 1001 and put your pegs back down without the bike falling over. Put your feet back down without the bike falling over. If you're not comfortable enough to try that, you should be taking some steps when you're starting off. I'm not talking about 10 or 12 or riding with outriggers where your feet extended down, just waiting. Take 2 purposeful steps, put your feet up. So, thoughts on that?
Yep. Larry, have you seen that little action?
Yes, I have. And I think that's important as well. The other thing that I'm thinking about in terms of the most common mistakes is speeding. And I see motorcycles speeding all the time. And
I can vouch that Tom and I never speed.
Well, I'm not talking about doing 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. You understand? I'm talking about.
Oh, we were like 5 miles under the speed limit the whole time, Tom.
Okay.
Absolutely, and
go.
So coming home from my ride this week, I'm on the interstate, and I was, I rarely speed on the interstate, and I don't. I keep it within a reasonable,
Okay, now I have to clarify this. When you say speed on the interstate, are you talking about like Atlanta speed? Like what?
Yeah,
what?
Well, more than 5 to 7 miles over the speed limit.
So, but okay, I have to ask again because Atlanta.
Well, it depends on the road.
If you're on 285 and you're telling me that you're only doing 75 miles per hour on 285 during traffic, and you're still alive, I have a hard time believing that.
Not on 285. I if I can, I never take the bike on 285. I don't even like to take the car on 285. And for those that don't know, 285 is the circular road that goes around Atlanta. It's 42 miles long. It is also has the moniker of being the deadliest interstate in the country of deaths per mile. So it's not a good road. But anyway, as I was riding along, I see the little blue lights coming up fast behind me. And I was like, had that moment, pull over to the right, and he comes up besides me and pulls right in front of me and takes out the guy that I was following. And pull over.
That's one of those moments.
I felt bad. It's like, oh, and this guy actually had, this guy had actually.
All right, we're losing you again, Tom.
Yeah.
So I gotta let all this catch up. So
I was.
I'm gonna edit all this out. Okay. So I think that's a sign. I think it's a sign.
Doesn't go ahead. Right.
We'll work on our internet issues. What's going on?
My bike is fast. Obviously, my internet is not.
Yeah. Well, we'll work on that. All right. So you know, we've been going about an hour. So now we'll end the topic here. If you have had or you see things, common mistakes that you see riders make, do me a favor. Write in feedback at throttledpodcast.com. Go to the website, hit the contact form, send it that way. Or feel free to go to Facebook, Throttle Podcast, and, post something up there on the Facebook page. So before we wrap up, Larry, you mentioned you had a little bit of paddock news. So
I did.
Why don't we, it's been a while. I'm sure it's greatly anticipated. So what do you have for us today?
Well, I just wanted to mention, for those who are interested in the flat track and MotoGP seasons, that they're starting. Flat track starts next weekend, and it's starting off in Florida. So it's the Volusia half mile on Friday, March 12th, and the Volusia second part of the half mile on Saturday, March 13th. The flat track season is getting going, and it's going to be another season where we're anticipating a contest between, Briar Bauman and Jared Meese. Meese is the underdog at this point, and he's trying to restore himself to the championship. And Briar Bauman is the current champion who wants to repeat. For those who love American flat track, it is starting off in Florida next weekend, and NBCSN is the network that will be carrying the races, and they will be delayed about a week, in order to view it, unless you subscribe to one of the packages where you can see the races live, or you can on demand. But otherwise, it will be carried on NBCSN, and you can check the schedules for that. So that's one piece of I think interesting news. And secondly, MotoGP. And MotoGP got started this weekend. They started testing the MotoGP bikes in Qatar. And they had 2 days of testing so far, and there'll be more. And on the second day, the fastest laps were done by Quartararo on the Yamaha. And that is, interesting and good. Last year Yamaha did really, really well in the qualifying. I think they qualified first in almost half of the races, or somebody on a Yamaha, but that didn't bear out in terms of the races themselves. However, Yamaha historically does well in Qatar, and so it's not terribly surprising that they are doing well now. Interestingly, Aprilia, sort of the underdog this season, they're coming in with new bikes and new engines, and they're the only entrant this year that can modify their engines during the season. And they are their bikes appear to be much improved. They've been quite strong in qualifying. Unfortunately, the same can't be said of Rossi on the Petronas Yamaha. He's not feeling it yet, and he's remaining optimistic, however. So we'll see about that. But I'm not terribly optimistic that this is going to be a good year for Rossi, and it may be his last year. Also, Marquez will not be in on the start of the season. He's still healing from that very serious fracture that he had last year, arm fracture that he had last year. But he will be racing this year. If not in the first race, he may come in sometime in the first quarter of the season. So I would expect a competitive year in MotoGP, possibly more new faces appearing on the podium this year. but it's going to be a very interesting year, and I'm eager to see how the manufacturers and the riders do. There'll be a new designs on the bikes, on the aerodynamics, and on the frames. They can't, as I mentioned, they can't do anything on the engines this year except for Aprilia. Because Aprilia hasn't qualified in enough races to earn the moniker of not being able to modify engines. So the other manufacturers will not be able to do much to their engines, but they can do stuff still on the frames and on the aerodynamics, and they're working on that real hard. So it's going to be, I think, a very exciting and interesting season this year. Stay tuned. I will be reporting on it. And that's it for the paddock for this week.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Cool. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. As always, we want to thank the Throttle crew members for helping out with the show. You guys are still awesome. Still the best supporters of any other podcast out there. Really love you guys. Thank you so much for what you do and keeping the show going. If you'd like to join the Throttle crew, go to the website, throttlepodcast.com. Scroll to the bottom, click on the Patreon link, or go to patreon.com/throttled. You can get signed up. Love to have you join the crew and support the show. All righty. Let's wrap things up a little bit. So I'm just gonna. All right. Twitter @Throttle Show, Facebook Throttle Podcast. Like I said earlier, Instagram Throttled Show. We do broadcast live Sundays from about 7:30. We get going about 7:15. We try to get the live stream up and running. We post links on Twitter and Facebook when that's going. But if you really want to know the notifications, the easiest way to do it is to go to Facebook page, find one of our old, broadcast thing, go to the website, go to the YouTube page for the show, subscribe, hit the notification button, and as soon as we hit the button that we're going live, you get a notification on your phone, if that's where you've got an app installed, and or wherever, and we're able to go. So you'll get an email notification, and if you've got the app installed on your phone, you'll get a little notification alert there too. So really hope to see some new subscribers come in. A little programming note, I think next week we're here, and then after that it gets a little fuzzy. We're probably going to be missing, I think, the 21st and the 28th, if my memory is accurate. Both of those days we will not have a show. I will endeavor to have, before that break, to have all the shows caught up. We're like a day behind, so it's not a big deal. We'll get one out here in the next few days and get this one out. And that should be it. So we're plugging along pretty good. Look forward to getting your feedback, especially on your thoughts on what you see new riders or just riders in general. They don't have to be new. What do you see riders that happen, right? Because we see a lot that's out there. We have good habits and then they slowly become bad habits, right? We slack on this and we compromise our technique and then we develop bad habits. So what are some bad habits that you have or that you see people that have? Write in. We'd love to talk about it and maybe cover of them. It'd be interesting to have a new section of the show every once in a while where we take feedback from observations or people saying, I have this bad habit. What can I do? Or I'm having trouble with X skill. What can I do? We'd love to be able to talk about that, but we need to know specifically what we could talk about that would help you. So write in, let us know. Looking forward to getting those emails. Really are.
Yeah, we could have an instructor's corner.
Coach's corner.
Coach's corner. There you go.
Yeah. Brought to you by nobody. All right. So
Throttled.
Yeah. Throttle Podcast proudly presents Coach's Corner.
There you go. Sounds good. I like it.
I'll have to work on my voice, but I don't like that take. All right, everybody. Well, look, good night or good morning, wherever you are. And have a great time. Stay safe if you got there in riding. I know I'm stepping on these other guys' outros. We'll just pick it up next time. Talk to you guys later. See ya.
See you.
And everybody in the chat, as always, you're great. Everybody in the live stream or watching this video.